Welcome back, everyone, to Tech Tuesday here on Northwest Digital News. And we have the star of our show sitting there on the left, Harry Brelsford. I'm Kevin Hunter here at the broadcast desk, and Kyle Torgerson making all the tech happen. Well, we have a great show for you guys today. We're going to talk about how to become a master computer technology consultant. And for those of you who haven't had a chance to meet Harry and know a little bit about Harry, this is the master computer technology consultant here sitting on our screen. He's written 20-plus books in the technology sectors. In fact, we're going to be talking about one of them here on the show today. 400-plus articles on tech, and travels all around the United States to tech events everywhere. There's not too many people who know more about what's happening in the world of technology than Harry Brelsford. And so, Harry, if you would, before we roll into this real quick, talk just briefly about SMB Nation, and you're going on 2 decades now with SMB Nation, correct? Correct.
Yeah, it's the goose that laid the golden egg, and now we're just keeping the goose alive. And other, I don't know if I go as far as cash cow, but I've been able to eke out a living, and it's been an honor and a pleasure. But for those that aren't familiar, SMB Nation is a community. Every industry has a community, and we're an independent community where we fancy ourselves as being a little bit of an ombudsman up here in Seattle, that every now and then we kind of poke Microsoft, as they should be, right? So don't get me wrong, I live in Seattle, and Microsoft has been good to me and my family. It's been a wise choice to live in Seattle. But we, you know, there's just a time and a place to kind of poke the bear with some of the technology, and that's a lot of what my writing was, is people look to us for an authentic, bona fide conversation that's not, you know, we're not a house organ, right? And so, and Microsoft respects that, and we're all professionals, right? I mean, it's all good. But that's what we are, 50,000 strong, a community of IT pros, geeks, computer guys, computer gals. The common term today is managed services provider, MSP, but it's all the same person. And,
well, speaking of Microsoft, Harry, we were at Microsoft with you not long ago. And so despite your investigative work or the poking of Microsoft that you've done over the last couple of decades, they got a ton of respect for you over there, and that was quite obvious. So, it's well, worked out well.
And they've got a good story, right? They do. And Kevin, it might go a little bit, you know, one of your niches being in the automobile industry, you know, you certainly have the right to be critical of the industry and their practices, and it's all good. So that's how we roll, just as it sounds, SMB Nation, if people care to search and learn a little bit more about us.
Well, let's talk about some of the bits and bytes of becoming that computer technology consultant. Where do you want to start?
Well, you know, what I wanted to do today, Kevin, over the last year, 6 months, year that we've worked together, you know, we tend to, inappropriately so, default to geek speak. And each week it's always something, as they say, and it always will be. But I kind of want to, for today and maybe for some shows in 2019, let's talk business speak. Now, with business speak, understand that I'm coming at it from a technology partner point of view, an IT pro point of view, but some of the things I talk about in business speak, quite frankly, could be done by any professional services firm that's just trying to do a better job of managing their client relations. So let's knock out a quick list today, and I'm looking over here. Show up. So 80% of success is just showing up, according to Woody Allen, the famous comedian. And it's true. And I want to give you a different spin on that, that I was in a startup in the mid-90s called 1-800-Network, back when phone numbers meant something, and it was Network Temporaries, owned by Mac Temps, and home office in Boston. So spent a lot of time in Boston, got to know Boston, and individual who was of a capable individual, but not necessarily a superstar, had taken some classes at an Ivy League college. And it's like, well, you know, how'd you do that? What's the story? And he said, man, just the first and foremost, live here. Just live in Boston, right? And amazing, you're here. Mm-hmm. Amazing things will happen. You can go in and talk to admissions. So, number one, show up. 80% of success is showing up. Number two, minimize mistakes. Mm-hmm. I have really taken this to heart in my career. What wakes me up in the morning is, man, I hope I don't make a mistake today. And the analogy would be a pro athlete, right? We just had some playoff games on TV. We have the Super Bowl coming up. And think about a pro athlete. A pro athlete is going to wake up and say, I hope I don't get injured today. Mm-hmm. Exactly. So if you can, if you can minimize mistakes, you can make it. Mm-hmm. Number three, communication. Just had this talk with a Microsoft executive last Friday, had an hour-long meeting with him, been a while since we caught up. Turns out his son is a computer science major at Washington State University out of Pullman. And that program made sense. He could get in. The University of Washington is very hard to get into. That's a fairly small program, computer science. So the guy goes to WSU. And I said, well, he's going to do great. I mean, and I said, but talk to me. Is he well spoken? Is he well written? Is he a communicator? Because I said, in the world of computer science and DevOps and geeks, boy, that is a secret to success, right? Mm-hmm. If you're articulate. And the gentleman said, we're working on it. And I said, fair enough. Number four, master a technical niche, riches and niches. And I'll give you an example again that's going to translate for your audience. Would be the medical healthcare compliance area, the act known as HIPAA, mm-hmm. HIPAA compliance, and a lot of geeks are involved in HIPAA compliance from. I think the status is called advisor role. There's a legal status. It's not my niche. And then, of course, there would be management consultants and business consultants concerned with HIPAA. So pick a niche. And Kevin, I don't know, have you had the great pleasure of bumping into some of the HIPAA and compliance conversations in on this network with your other shows?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely have.
Yeah, it's real. Savor the moment is my next piece of advice. I think I'm up to number 6, working for yourself. Savor the moment. Was on a call this morning, not making this up, and we're talking about, the trade-offs of working for yourself being what we call a suit, a corporate suit. And I said, I got to tell you, I can go biking. Right now, the days are shorter in the Pacific Northwest because it's winter. The days are a little bit rainy. I said, I can go biking at 1:15 in the afternoon. Get on my bicycle, go put in my hour a day, keeps the cardiologist away. And I said, to me, that's a big part of my income, right? That I'm savoring the moment, but take that time, go out for that 1:15 p.m. walk or bike ride and make it up on the flip side, right? Who's to say you can't peek at email at 7 p.m. or 8 p.m. to catch it all up?
I'm going to talk about that for just a moment, savoring the moment. This is actually advice that I hear from business consultants, coaches, mentors, like all over the place. Savor the moment, and when you hit these little goals and milestones in your business, go out and have a party and celebrate it. Give yourself a pat on the back and be excited about where this, but go celebrate it because, in fact, just recently here on Northwest Digital News, we were talking about various milestones that we've hit, here in our broadcast. And, obviously I have worked in the online broadcasting business and with vlogging and doing tutorials and how-tos, for a good number of years. So all of that gave me an advantage. But we started this show from scratch in October 8th, 2017, and hit 70-plus countries by the close of, 2018. So pretty darn proud of that. Yeah, no, you built a real business, and
Boy, howdy, I've never met a party I didn't like, so I don't, watch it, Kevin, I don't need excuses to go celebrate.
You'll have to go. We'll have to set that up here sometime soon. All right.
Yeah, you can take the boy out of Alaska, but you can't get the Alaska out of the boy. I'll just leave it at that. A couple other quick hitters, bits and bytes, grow with each opportunity. So, you know, two angles on that. One is I respect, and I know you do from having worked with yourself and Kyle, but I respect life learners, right? I'm fired up by people who say, hey, I'm taking a community college class, middle age, mid-career, and you could scratch your head and literally say, well, why waste your time, right? Why do that on Tuesday and Thursday nights? Well, if anything, you always want to stay relevant in the business community, in the tech community. But, you know, there is a thing called a life learner. And you see that, you know, Kevin, you see it every day up here, people who made their mark in early Microsoft. And these people will be rolling out of Amazon in a few years, too. But you ever see these people when they hit someone who is the age of 50 and they go to law school? And you're kind of like, well, why are you doing that, man? And they're like, well, I'm a life learner. You know, I'm flush. I got the money. I retired or whatever I do. But, you know, Kevin, is the ROI there at the age of 50 to really make it as a big-time lawyer? Probably not on Wall Street, right? But these people just have other motivations. So they're growing with opportunity. Next one is don't overbook yourself. So, you know, it's easy to do. It loosely translated, you sometimes have to say no to opportunities. You have to say no to a deadline. Because the worst thing you can do is overbook yourself and do poor quality work. And boy, nothing gnaws at me more than that in my own career when you just got so much forward momentum and you overbook yourself, and nobody's happy. The client's not happy. I'm not happy.
And going back to one of your early points about communication, all of a sudden communication is breaking down and a whole bunch of things are going sideways.
Yeah. And communication's your first barometer as to how the relationship's going. Watch your finance and taxes. Goes without saying, or as I say, enough said. Don't sweat the small stuff. So it's a marriage. And, you know, you have to kind of really wonder that, well, do I really want to fight that the wall heater was left on overnight upstairs, right? Pick your battles. Do you really want to have that battle? And, you know, what I see, Kevin, and just in our industry, a large backup and disaster recovery company, the founder sold out to private equity, exited 12 months later, standard stuff in merger and acquisitions. And there was a community movement to suggest basically the head of sales should become the CEO. And he did not get the job. The private equity firm brought in their own hotshot, which is pretty common. But the gentleman who was being kind of talked about in the community, no names, of course, but Kevin, he sweats the small stuff. I just, when the name flew by, I just had to have a little chat with myself that, you know, I don't know if this guy's CEO material. You know what I mean? That CEOs have to kind of live at a higher level.
Exactly. And, you know, sweating my dad used to use a phrase really similar to this, and he said, don't major in the minors. And I was making this point to a group of people that I was speaking to in a major metropolitan area, and I looked up the top 10 players who had spent the most amount of time in the minor leagues in professional baseball. And I listed all of their names. And, you know, as I said, you know, if you recognize any of these names, put your hand up, you know, as I went around the room. And so I kept listing the names. And I get all the way to the bottom of the list, and no arms have come up. And I said, these are all players who have majored in the minors. This is what happens to your business. And in your organization, when you major in the minors too, nobody will ever know you. Your customers will never know you. You become a nobody after a while. You got to play in the big leagues and get into things that really matter if you're going to become of substance in any way, shape, or form, or a meaningful business. So, like Dad said, don't major in the minors.
Yeah, yeah. No, I'm gonna steal that and use it in a future book, but I'll give your dad accreditation.
There you go.
So next up would be mentor others. So I believe in this, that, it's the old send the elevator back down. Mm-hmm. So, Kevin, I don't know if I've been fortunate or lucky. The harder I work, the luckier I am. But, I've made it part of my living theology, if you will, to mentor others. And you'd be surprised the conversations that will come up. I have a longtime employee that you're familiar with, Kevin and Kyle, and she, has expressed, and I get it, that the day will come where she may exit the tech sector. Technology is a burnout, right? It's hard.
Yep.
And I get it. You got to run, and that's okay. And her husband's in the firefighter, paramedic, kind of a combo guy. Mm-hmm. And so, we've had very interesting talks about, well, should she get an online master's in healthcare administration? And that would allow her to align with the nature of her husband's career. And man, they could live anywhere. I mean, you could go to Juneau, Alaska, right? You got a firefighter paramedic, and you got a master's in healthcare administration, which is logistics on steroids with all the compliance.
Sure.
And so that's what I call mentoring, right? There's two ways to approach that. And when I shared that with a family member on the other side of the aisle on a recent trip to Denver, she just couldn't believe I would even have a talk like that with an employee. She was old school, right? Like, I would never have that talk with my boss. What are you going to do? But, change is inevitable. Two last things, thrive and survive under any conditions. And so this is kind of summarizing what we talked about earlier. Number one, have a technical niche in demand. Number two, strong communication skills. And number three, above average client management skills. So a consultant, remember this, is a service provider. It's a distinctly different career path than a line employee inside a large corporation. It's a client management, and you better you better get excited and thrive and survive in these conditions, or you shouldn't be a consultant, right? Which
Agreed.
is fine. Yeah, go be a salary person, no problem. Finally, and again, this is just business advice, but be in the top 10% of your peer group. And here's why I say that. On the traditional employee side, what's every headhunter say when they're, promoting your cause? So, and headhunters still exist. That's still out there. So a headhunter takes you under his wing, and he's going to promote your cause to get you an exec position or a new position. And headhunters love to say that, well, Harry's in the top 10% of his professional peer group, right? Because everybody wants to hire a top 10%er.
Yep.
And then the other thing I would say is what we found a correlation with the top 10% is that's about the size of the audience in an industry or that universe of people who will go to a conference, right? That 90% of the people, Kevin, you and I have done a few conferences, I broadcast from them frequently.
Yep.
That audience on the floor, by definition, in my humble opinion, is the top 10% of their peer group.
Well, there you mentioned, goes back to something you mentioned in the beginning, showing up and being a part of that whole thing, and they're demonstrating. You can actually guess that by the people that you run into there, that they very likely are top 10%ers, and you just think in terms of people who are thinking, about tech and maybe going to tech events, you're going to run into very likely that top 10% crowd. And then the follow-up advice I'd give to people will then make sure you leave that event with a lot of new business cards, a lot of new contacts, a lot of new people to talk to, because all of that's going to add to what you're doing. I want to go back to a point you made about thrive and survive under any conditions. I was at an event probably 20 years ago, but this proved to be pretty impactful even from my own business career. But there was a gentleman on the stage. There was, I don't know how many people in this Coliseum, maybe 10,000 people. It was a big event. And he was standing on the stage, and he was talking about challenges and things that we encounter in business and all these different hurdles we encounter in business. And he goes, you can be that person that allows all those things to defeat you. And then, you get on in years, and one day, you have your grandson come and sit on your lap, and you tell him, grandson, Grandpa would have done, and then you list all these different things you could have done, despite all the, but as a result of all these hurdles, but this happened, and that happened, and that happened, and so I wasn't able to do any of that stuff. And aren't you proud of your grandpa? And the whole audience bust up laughing. And his message to people was, don't allow these things, don't allow these little setbacks, and you talk about mistakes and other things like that. Don't allow these things to set you back, because you're human, you're prone to make mistakes, you're prone to have these things that will stand in your way of your success. But if you believe enough in yourself and keep your head up, keep plowing forward, do a bunch of these things that Harry suggested here today, your odds of success in business increase dramatically.
Excuse me. No, it's absolutely true. That's why I have, by the day, increasing respect for people who've started, owned, and operated a business. I mean, I always have. Mm-hmm. But for whatever reason, I've really reflected on that in the last year or so. Probably because I'm keeping my business relevant by transformation and some pivots and so on. And when I'm on the phone with like-minded partners or customers or whatever, and they say, their company's 17 years old or 10 years old, the 10-year hurdle, they've gone through all of that, right? The mistakes and the workflow and all that. And there's no shortcut. Mm-hmm. So absolutely.
So I have a closing question here, Harry, before we leave. So after all these years, and during all these years of working for yourself and creating your own opportunities, you ever have somebody come along, the naysayers or a family person who's, thinks they're looking out for the best of, for your best, and you ever have anybody say, Harry, you just need to get a job?
Oh, yeah, I'm married to that. And I mean that in a kind way, because a lot of listeners are married to that. And it goes both ways. It's not gender specific.
Right.
But it goes both ways. And that's the world I live in. And let me tell you, when times are good, I mean, I'll just give it to you straight. When times are good, I don't have as much of that commentary. Mm-hmm. But when any small business, hits, we live and breathe on cash flow. So when we hit one of those, then the peanut gallery tends to get a little more vocal. But at the end of the day, a better way to answer that would be, I have time. I control my own schedule, and I have time. Mm-hmm. So, I'm the guy out here in rural Western Washington who doesn't necessarily have to commute into the city. So, Kevin, I was the guy that was there for the 4 p.m. matinee for the kids in elementary school, versus the suits. They can't get away from Seattle to get back to the island fast enough to make a 4 p.m. Mm-hmm. So that's probably a more appropriate way to talk about the benefits of self-employment and being an entrepreneur.
Well, you won't have an opportunity for those peaks if you aren't willing to have the stomach and the guts to get through those valleys, because they will be there. And and you will have those people around you, like the well-intentioned family members who would tell you, you just need to get a job. But you know what? If you believe in yourself, keep on keeping on. I can tell you from even my own personal experience, and obviously, Harry, there's been plenty of things that you've done as an entrepreneur that if you stopped everything today, you'll still get paid on for years to come. And the same is true in my life, my career, and what I've created. And if I never turned the microphone on tomorrow and never did for the rest of my life, I have no idea how many years the content I've already created would continue to pay me, because it has for many, many years. And so just tell people that you're creating investments in yourself and in your own career. Yep. Keep on keeping on and get through those valleys. The peaks will make it all worth it when you get there. Well, that's going to be a wrap here.
That the final word. Can't top that.
Yeah. All right, well, that's a wrap here on Tech Tuesday here on Northwest Digital News. Harry Brelsford, Kevin Hunter, and Kyle Torgerson. Kyle, get us out of here.
This concludes today's live programming on Northwest Digital News. Thanks for joining us for this special broadcast. Heard around the world in more than 70 countries on YouTube, Instagram, Patreon, Facebook, and Twitch TV. If you enjoyed a story or guest we had here on Northwest Digital News and would like to strut your stuff on the broadcast, email us today at wainfo2017@gmail.com or call or text to 360-545-3501. We're always interested in unique stories, topics, and guests to share with our worldwide audience. Before you go, don't forget to give us a big thumbs up and comment on the live stream. And for those of you who'd like to financially support the broadcast, you can do so at patreon.com/Northwest Digital News. We thank you for